Folks, did you know that at the age of 25, Gen Z owns more homes than Generation X, Gen X, and millennials at a similar age of 25? That fact and more, I believe that Gen Z has a chance to be the next great generation. Just so you know, Gen Z today are 12 to 27, so quite a range. But I think there are things going on in the economy that if Gen Z steps up and uses them to their advantage, they could be ahead of the game and put my generation X to shame, put millennials to shame. So I want to talk about what Gen Z should be doing as they continue to age going forward. How you doing, Coach?
Doing well. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well, man. So Gen Z. My daughter's 32, so she's at the lower end of the millennial scale. Do you have Gen Zs, Coach?
Yes, I'm at the lower end of the Gen Zs. I've got a 13 and a almost 12-year-old. So yeah, this will be like dad giving advice to
There you go.
to the kids. Here we go.
There you go. So I think there's a couple of things. Again, there was a Newsweek article out talking about Gen Z owning more homes. At 25, the percentage of Gen Z that owns a home is higher than Gen X or millennials. And I don't think many people would get that,
That's
right?
surprising. That's surprising. I know millennials got crushed a little bit. Different economic cycles
Yes.
with housing, with the 2008 9, and then but that's really interesting. I think that bodes well for Gen Z for sure.
Yeah. And I think the big thing about Gen Z that I think's coming is I think they're the first generation not to have the mantra if you got to go to college or you're a loser. Gen
Yeah.
X, for me, clear as day. If you go to college or you're a loser. Millennials, I think, probably had a lot of that as well. I don't think Gen Z is going to have that. I think Gen Z's, gonna go to high school and they're going to choose other routes. College may be a route, but it won't be the highest percentage. I think. I think Gen Z is going to do something different.
Well, think about the big debts that weigh down generations. And you've got, I mean, these are the big expenses we have in our budgets too, right? But people pay for college and millennials just got crushed by that debt. Gen X got crushed by the college debt. But the millennials had that situation where they had a bunch of debt and realized that the cost of college had gone up so much compared to what the salaries were. So I think they got the brunt of that. But then think about housing debt, think about driving too. Like my kids, if they're representative of Gen Z, which I think I've read some stats on this, that they often drive less as well. Like
Yeah, they don't get their
they're
license at 16 like we did.
yeah. So I mean, this might be a little few, too far ahead, but self-driving cars and kind of that attitude. I just think there's a lot of trends that affect just the basics of finances that Gen Z has some different attitudes about. Those in particular, transportation. If you're a couple, if you're willing to have one car and the other one ride a bike, or live in locations where they're walkable, or if we do have self-driving cars, just all right, I'm just going to take the self-driving Uber or Tesla or
Yep.
whatever it is. Like those are the kind of things that people just don't realize how much money you spend on your transportation, on the house with a white picket fence instead of house hacking or going to college. I mean, so if you just eliminate some of those big ones or reduce them or just like have a little bit different attitude about them, you could save a lot more money for sure.
Now, I think the other thing that I think Gen Z has going for it is, again, they're not going to take, I mean, I don't know what percentage should be. Let's just make up a number. 25% of the people that, in other generations went to college, didn't have a plan, got out, didn't do this, didn't do that, but came away with debt. If you have 25% less of those happening, that's just you're like, to your point, you're instantly in a better financial position. But I think the winner chicken dinner is going to be something actually I read over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal. It looks like the younger generation is starting to move to the trades. You don't need a college degree. And if you get into the trades now because there was a huge gap, right? Baby boomers didn't want their kids to be in the trades. They said, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. Right. So there's this huge gap. And I think Gen Z is going to shock people and go into the trades at a bigger percentage, which is it's going to really grow the middle class, I think, because the Wall Street Journal talked about the new 6-figure careers in the trades.
Yeah, I find myself telling my daughters hey, as you grow, I mean, they might still want to go to college, and I'd probably support that. But like, I want you to have skills. Like, I don't, what are you interested in? Like, that's just my mantra at the moment. Like, are you interested? Like, one of my daughters is interested in video editing, another one's interested in, makeup and different, things with pets and dogs. And I'm just like, hey, look, whatever you're interested in, all I care about right now is that you follow that, take a little class online, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Or, let's
Yes.
just build your skill set. And to me, like, if you just get that habit, and this applies to real estate investors too, by the way, like, if you just look at your whole investment career in real estate as a set of skills that you put together, you and I've both done this. We built the skill of acquiring properties, of evaluating markets, of making offers, of borrowing money, of using creative financing, of managing properties. Like, each one of those is like this little skill set that you can learn, you can read a book on, you can go to a trade on. I think that I love this idea, because part of the thing I didn't like about college, like, I like some of the just the learning esoteric stuff and cool, but for most people, like, hey, you need to learn some things that you can apply to make money, and then you can do those other things on the side too. But like, a skill that has an ROI, like, that's what it's all about.
And again, if you're not taking on college debt, you start working for you, like you're working at 18 instead of 23, right? You get that time advance. And then let's just add this little sugar and spice on top of that. Lots of these Gen Zs want to be influencers, right? So why don't you just create a channel or an influence around whatever your trade is going to be, and then just watch it grow over
Yeah.
time? By the time you're 35, you're going to have a huge following, be an expert in the space. You're going to have all this other, 7 streams of income or whatever you want. And you can build a big company if you want. It's just, I really do think Gen Z is teed up because again, they're not taking on the college debt like past generation, which is a win. They're moving to the trades at a faster rate, which is a win. They're not signing up for car debts, to your point. It's a win. It's just like, man, they grew up with these devices, so they're not foreign to like you and I. Like, what's video editing? It's like they've been doing it since they were 6 years old.
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
like
I think,
it's
yeah,
intuitive. It's just what you do. I know. I want
it's,
to rip on the personal brand thing a little bit, because I think that's a lesson for broader, not just general Generation Z, but the cynical side of people. Like, I hear a lot of this from 40 somethings, 50 somethings, like, oh gosh, the 20 somethings are always, they're just filming themselves all the time, and they aspire to be an influencer. And there's a negative dark side of that as well. But I think the frame you just put it in there, whatever skill you have, whatever career path you have, if you get used to yourself being a brand, like,
yep.
that is such a critical piece. Like, you've done it, I've done it. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not only like a smart thing, but it's almost a survival thing, because what is LinkedIn today, other than you having a personal brand that you can promote to the world? But taking another level, if you have a skill and you demonstrate that you have a skill by sharing it with other people on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, like that, not only it helps you learn, because a teacher learns the most, right? When you're sharing with other people, but then you're positioning yourself as the expert. And that's marketing. That's marketing 101. That's you're spreading the word about what you do. And so that's the positive side of that movement of people just always being on social media and always being YouTube is like I think it's a very good marketing
Oh, for
communication
sure.
channel. Because when I went to college, there's a ton of smart people who couldn't communicate, who when they step in front of a class, like, they couldn't
Oh,
say a word, they just stumble across their words, where that's the key skill. Like, I don't care how smart you are, you got to combine that with some communication skills, which if that's the trend, that's a really good trend.
yeah. Then the other thing we haven't even hit on, but just going to be, again, it's my belief that Gen Z is really the first generation where house hacking is like the way to get started,
Hmm.
right? It was not certainly not a thing that Gen X thought about, maybe a little bit with millennials. But I again think Gen Z is right on the cusp of, you know what? Let's go house hack let's think about this. You get in the trades, you don't have school debt, you're house hacking, your rent cost is zero. By the time you're building a personal brand, by the time you're 30, you're probably a millionaire and you're known for whatever, you do. It's wild to think about.
Yeah, and the headlines for a lot of people, they're going to push back and say, well, housing prices are really high now compared to what the Gen Z is going to make in their salary. Okay, like, maybe not, but even if that's true, if you can house hack, if you're in a high cost of living area and you just by default house hack, you're going back to, like, this isn't a new thing. Like,
Mhm.
my wife's family moved from Croatia and Germany to St. Louis, and they lived in these like up and down duplexes, which are beautiful, these beautiful 1880s, 1920s. Like, this is something the United States, people in the United States have done for a long time when you can't afford a house to live in by yourself. you live in a unit and you rent the other side out. Like, this is not a new
Exactly.
concept. It's just that we skipped, like, the millennials or Generation X and the baby boomers were like, no, no, no. Like, we live in single family houses and don't have it. We don't rent it to anybody else. Whereas
Right.
prior generations were like, all right, we can't afford this. So
Yeah.
therefore so the
Yeah.
point is, if housing is more unaffordable, as even more so, we should, like, new builders need to be building duplexes. Or I was talking to a local builder here in Clemson about building a single family house, and just go ahead and, like, build it so that the master suite is kind of off by itself. It could be technically like an ADU and rented as an ADU with a separate interest and a separate driveway.
Yeah.
Like, I think smart
It's funny
investors
you
and
bring that
builders will be
up.
doing that, you know?
Funny you bring that up. I live in the house I bought that I'm in right now has a next gen suite. It's actually where my studio is. It's a whole wing. It's got a full suite, kitchen, living room, its own garage, its own entrance to the backyard. It's a brand new build, right? These next gen suites are, I think are the wave of the future. So, again, I just think that Gen Z, if they get their mind right, they get out of the video games and, oh, woe is me. But if you don't take on the debt, you go into a trade with high. I mean, you're making 100 grand by the time you're 25, and then you start building a brand around that trade or whatever that is, and then you house hack what 2 or 3 times. You go from a fourplex to a triplex to a duplex to a house. You've won the game. You won the game by 30 or 35. It's over. You're a winner.
Then you could play video games again.
Yeah, then you can play video games. Play video games when you're 35.
There's nothing wrong with that, but do what matters,
Time
right?
and
Video
place.
games.
There's a time and a place. Not when you're in build mode. When you're in build mode, you got to get out there and work. So I don't know. I'm really encouraged by what Gen Z has ahead of them. I think we need to encourage that. I do think there's a lot of folks out there that are giving up. Right? If you're in the Gen Z bucket and you're giving up, that's on you. I mean, the world is your oyster. You're 20, right? At worst case, you're 27. You're a baby. You've got 80 to 100 years ahead of you. The opportunities are there, right? I don't know any 80-year-old that wouldn't trade places with you in a heartbeat to get another run at this. So, pretty crazy.
I love the optimism tone. There's so many conversations going on right now that are negative, Nelly, but when you step back and look at the big picture, so I'm speaking to the Generation Z now as well. Like, the big picture is, yes, there's issues and there's challenges and there's political stuff going on, but the fundamentals, like, the more I've traveled, I've lived in other countries, like, when I come back to where we are and the ingredients that make up our financial system, and yes, problems and all, like, there is just a ton of opportunity.
There's no better place
yeah.
to be a 20-year-old right now.
Yeah.
Never a better time.
Yes.
Never a better time. And again, you're not, it's so clear to me. You don't have college debt. You can house hack and have low rent. You could go into the trades today and become an apprentice to somebody today and build and have an income 6 figures in 3 or 4 years, however long it takes in the trade. If you're in Gen Z and you've given up already, that's on you, man. That's on you. That's what I think.
Agree. Yeah. So, like the topic, I have to let my daughters watch this now so they can see
what's coming,
whether they care about what Michael and Chad. I think it'd be better coming from somebody not their dad. So thank you, Michael, for bringing that up.
There you go, buddy. I appreciate you. Where can people find you?
Coach Carson is my platform. If you look on YouTube or coachcarson.com, you can check me out. I've got some free tools you can get at my website and get on my email newsletter as well. So thanks for having me, Michael.
You got it, man. Take care.